years ago today, significant progress was made in downtown Boise, filling in a hole at 8th and Main. Well, it transformed downtown Boise into what we know today. The 17-story Zions Bank building rose from the ashes, almost literally, on the corner of 8th and Main. For more than 2 decades before that, though, it was an empty eyesore for the city. That corner, it was just a hole for most of that time. It was a blemish that, well, it began just after midnight, January 24th, 1987, which is why we're bringing it today into today's 208 Redial. It had stood on the corner of 8th and Main since 1905. Designed by Tortolet & Company, the same architects of the state capitol, the Overland was first built as a 4-story office building, a nod to 19th century Italian architecture, complete with terracotta cornices and clay lion heads. By 1910, another 2 levels were added, and the 6-story structure became the Eastman in 1927. Nearly 5 decades later, the city of Boise bought the building under its urban renewal plan in 1972, which is why the Eastman sat empty for another 15 years, often offering refuge to the city's homeless. It was then, in the early morning hours of January 24th, 1987, when Boise Fire Department responded to a report of smoke coming out of the building.
There was no chance of saving the building. When firefighters arrived on the scene, flames were already eating away at the building on 4 different floors. The heat was causing windows to explode, shattering glass on those below. More than 100 firefighters showed up to battle the blaze, which destroyed the Eastman building in downtown Boise.
We had an individual on the fire escape in the alley, and that fire escape came down to within about 30 feet of the ground, and we had to take a 35-foot ladder to get him off of there.
This morning, most of the flames are gone, but there's still a lot of smoke. Firemen say most of the floors inside the building have collapsed, and the fire chief is planning on ordering the dousing of the flames to stop. Otherwise, the building will turn into a big ice cube.
And by the light of the next day, the downtown landscape had changed.
The Eastman building is dangerously close to collapse. Spot fires are still flaring up here and there, but firefighters have stopped dousing the structure with fire hoses. The water is turning this building into a giant ice cube, making the rubble even more hazardous. In a heartbreaking decision, the City Council and BRA have given the fire department permission to demolish the structure. Developer Larry Leisure, who was going to renovate the building, says preserving even just the facade is now out of the question.
But I think everyone now feels that because of the very precarious nature of those 2 walls that are remaining, it would be very difficult to do so, and it's frankly right now quite dangerous.
There is one part that might be salvageable, these terracotta cornices. The clay lion's heads are very rare, and losing them would be tragic, according to historian Arthur Hart.
They have enormous dollar value as well as aesthetic and historic value. So they're certainly worth saving if we can do it without risking human life.
The Eastman building, standing here since 1905, was on the National Register of Historic Places. Once a historic landmark in Boise, it is now just a dangerous, crumbling old building. And though this is a terrible loss for Boise, BRA members insist the fire will not delay other redevelopment projects downtown.
Well, maybe it didn't, but it sure delayed that corner project. One of the 2 men who had to be rescued from the building the night of the fire ended up being charged with second-degree arson a few weeks later. Corner lot specifically became renowned for redevelopment delays. First destined to become, or to be demolished, I should say, in 1978. It wasn't, and that was supposed to make room for a downtown mall, but those plans went south, which became Bodo, which is then called the 8th Street Marketplace. Ownership of 8th and Main also changed hands several times over the years, and it became known as the Hole after one developer tried to build on it, but then stopped, left it exposed with rebar out in the open. Then finally, in 2011, the Gardner Company bought that piece of property and made it into Idaho's tallest 17-story Zions Bank building, again, which opened officially 10 years ago today.